The recruiting train just keeps on rolling. So what's next for Alabama?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. We'll talk about Monarch Money in just a little bit. Want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks for everybody for making this your first listen every single day. Also want to give a shout out to somebody that came up to me yesterday while I was at the Gulf restaurant here at Orange Beach. I think his first name was Adam. I think he said Lamar. Adam Lamar. Well, I mean, what a great name.
Cool place too. The Gulf. Huh? Shout out to the Gulf. Cool place.
Oh, the Gulf is great. If y'all had never been to the Gulf, I mean, we got to get them on as a sponsor. They're good. But anyway, he came up to me while I was in line waiting. And then a couple of people I could tell, they were like, why don't I know this guy?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you wouldn't know me. But anyway, look, recruiting.
Yeah, I took a picture with a fan outside the stadium one time. Somebody stopped me going in Bryant Denny and asked for a picture. And I'm like, sure, happy to do it. Of course, I'm happy to do that. And then when people saw that someone was taking a photo with someone just outside the gate at an Alabama game, that created like this whole crowd of people. And I could tell when they looked at me and saw that it was me, a lot of people were really disappointed.
They were like, Leroy Jordan really let himself go. All right, so
yeah, Leroy's older. Leroy looked older in person.
So the recruiting train does literally keep rolling. Alabama got a commitment from Ellick City's own Sedarian Morgan yesterday. Appreciate everybody joining us live for that commitment. It was a big deal, and it was a ton of fun to watch. It was a very unique commitment because nobody was sure it was set. There was a time that was set, and then it changed to a new time, and then they didn't do it on either one of those times.
Supposed to happen at 1. No, it's supposed to happen at noon.
Yep.
It was moved to 1. So, of course, it happened at 12:45.
Yeah, exactly. And, a lot of funky stuff going on there. But, hey, Sedarian Morgan, huge monster commitment for the Tide. Big deal. And now their wide receiver room is set when it comes to commitments. So what's next? I'll say this. Obviously, the clear answer would probably be Nolan Wilson tomorrow, roughly 5 o'clock. We hope 5 o'clock on July 4th for Alabama. Then Jira Edwards. I believe that commitment is at 3 o'clock on Saturday, the 5th. But there's been sort of a monkey wrench thrown in all this. Hayes Faucet, who might be the most powerful man in the Twitterverse right now. If he tweets something, googly eyes,
it's probably true.
If he tweets googly eyes, or he does that thing where the guys are like, oh God, like hold me back kind of thing. If he does that, everybody starts speculating.
Every fan base
farming to the 10th degree.
Every fan base thinks it's about their team. When Hayes Faucet does something really innocuous like that, like something exciting is about to happen, fans at Alabama, fans at Tennessee, fans at New Mexico, fans at Oregon State, fans at Penn State, they're all like, hey, this is about us. And that's where Hayes is sort of a genius at what he does. But he is one of the most – he's creating the graphics for, I don't know, I would say as much as 90% of the top players in the country use Hayes Faucet to make their recruiting graphic announcements. So that means Hayes knows in advance. And by the way, the thing at On3, a lot of people don't know. I think a lot of people assume at On3, and I'm not supposed to tell secrets, I'm sure, but I think a lot of people assume that, Hayes at On3, he knows, and that's how On3 has all this intel about where these kids are going. No, Hayes doesn't tell anybody. That's why those kids trust him. And that's why he gets all this work. Hayes is not the guy to ask.
I think that's awesome. And, because I do think that's the drawback to the crystal balls and RPMs that, and God bless them. We love us Tim Watts and Andrew Bone and Wilt Fong, and everybody loves a Fong bomb. But when they get it, especially if it's from Watts, Bone, or Fong, it is like, okay, that's where he's going. And then it does take a little bit of the drama out. But, we're just insatiable for recruiting news, and that's why Hayes Faucet is so popular. But going back to what a stir he caused here, So he posted one of his things, a googly eyes he posted, and then he posted an Alabama, like walking out of the tunnel, Jalen Milroe and some dudes. Just a GIF. And, or a meme. You know what? I think it's a GIF. Yeah. Anyway, or GIF. So he posted that and everybody's like, oh, it's Tank. It's Tank Jones. And I'm like, and then people ran with that. Like it's all over the place. Like Tank Jones is next. Everybody's going to be so excited. Maybe. And I mean, I guess it could be. I think it's more likely to be the quarterback whose name I refuse to try and pronounce.
Taven Kawa.
Or it could be even Wilson Zyrer. Or it could be Wilson or Edwards, and he's just creating some drama. And, if somebody calls him out on it, goes, hey, it's a big commitment. I was just letting you know.
Yeah, when people say, oh, it can't be talking about Nolan Wilson, everybody knew that already. It could be, I'm again speculating, that a Nolan Wilson sent Hayes the DM and said, hey, I am committing to Alabama. Can you get my graphic ready? And then he's like, so that's what he's talking about. So I think people assume too much. If it is Tank Jones or Taven Kawa or Wilson Zyrer, I don't know about that at this time. But as we're recording this, I am monitoring that situation because it's clear something's going on. Even players that are committed in this class right now, CD Morgan, Xavier Crowell, they are hinting that something big is about to happen. Now, they could be talking about Nolan Wilson or Jaira Edwards too, but they are hinting something big is about to happen that feels like a surprise. Tank Jones would be the biggest surprise. By the way, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Taven Kawa or Wilson Zyrer commits to Alabama in the next 24 hours. I will not be surprised. Tank Jones committing to Alabama in the next 24 hours would surprise me, but it's certainly something within the realm of possibility.
Here's what is awesome if you're Hayes Faucet, though. If it is Tank, right? I'm not saying it is. In fact, I don't think it is. I want it to be. I just don't think it is. It just doesn't jive with anything else that I feel is going on. I'm not saying he won't ultimately commit to Alabama. I just don't think this particular tweet was about that. But if it is about that, think of how Hayes Faucet's popularity and legend grows immensely from this. Because from now on, it's sort of like the kick six. I mean, what that did was give Auburn people hope forever. Like, well, we could return the field goal back, for a touchdown. You never know with us. It'll be that way forever. Like all you got to do is do it one time. If somebody hits a game-winning shot, you're like, well, he could hit a game-winning shot. He's done it before. And so I think that this is what that could be for Hayes Faucet. One of those things where from now on, the speculation and the talk and everything that this would generate would be huge for him. And boy, it would also be, I think it'd be big for Tank's brand. Here's another thing. I did think about this while I was just sitting on the beach, like thinking about this tweet. That's how bad I have recruiting-itis. I was like, if it is Tank.
Your kid's like, play with me in the ocean, Dad. And you're like, I'm thinking about Tank Jones. Come back later.
Daddy's not here. Call back later. But if it is Tank, think about this like, I think what it does for his brand. Because everybody else right now is doing the announcements and you get ready for it. But what about a guy like I still remember Marlon? I've talked about this before. I still remember Marlon Humphrey committing. I'm pretty sure it was during like when we had a big ice storm or snowstorm.
No one knew it was coming.
Nobody knew it was coming. It was just on Twitter. I was like, what in the world?
I'd forgotten that myself until you said it. He that was for a 5, and he was a 5-star. Marlon was a 5-star. It was completely out of the blue. You know who else did that? Not Alabama related. Arch Manning did the same thing.
Sure did.
Committed without telling anyone he was going to commit that day or that week.
Yeah.
All I know is I'm just eating lunch somewhere and scrolling through Twitter. And 1 minute ago, Arch is saying, by the way, thanks for everybody's interest. I'm going to Texas.
Yeah. And maybe if Marlon Humphrey had turned out to be a bust and not been an NFL star, I wouldn't remember it so much. But I think I would. And I think there's something to be said for the guy who doesn't call a press conference and doesn't bring a puppy to it or whatever. I think Tank Jones could be the guy like, y'all remember how Tank Jones committed? And then Hayes Faucet's like, yeah, I sort of broke the whole thing and here we are. But
Montgomery, not too many cycles ago, called one of my buddies that works in recruiting and said, "Hey, I've got a big announcement at my house, and I'm inviting all the media, and it's going to be at my house. I can send you the location so you can be there." And he's like, yeah, if you're going to commit, I'll be there. And he's like, no, I'm just announcing a top 10. I'm serious. He invited media to his house because he's announcing a top 10. That would be the complete opposite of what you're talking about. Marlon Humphrey and Arch Manning, who just quietly commit instead of, I'm holding a press conference to announce that I'm down to 10.
And by the way, when they release a top 10, you're not really culling it that much. They're like 132 teams, and you can bet that you're not even involved with 75 of them. So, I mean, you're cutting it down very little.
I've been begging for a kid to do this 135 days prior to making your commitment. Have a live camera every day, 135 hats on the table, every Power 4 school, every Group of 6 school, 135. Each day go live and remove one hat. I'm telling you, the whole world will be watching that by the end.
Every day. That would be brilliant.
Like today, out with UTEP. Not going to UTEP. It's out. See y'all tomorrow.
And that's it. Like, it's 10 seconds.
It would be great. Begging for someone to do this.
Oh, my God. You got me on that, man. I'm dying for that. All right, Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you the visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just it. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you also get to build your wealth. Look, the surprising thing I noticed with Monarch Money was how much money I was spending at restaurants I didn't need to go to. And so now I'm eating more at home, controlling my finances, and that's all because of Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for half off your first year at Monarch Money. So, meanwhile, recruiting nationally going cray-cray, as you can see clearly on the screen there. So, Keon Chapman just committed to North Kakalaki. We've talked
him up on the show quite a bit because me and you like him. No Alabama. Oh, I'm not sure if he has an Auburn offer or not. No Alabama offer.
He might have lately.
His twin brother also committed to North Carolina. So both Chapmans from Jackson, Chapman twin brothers, they're headed to play for Bill Belichick in Chapel Hill. I like those guys quite a bit, especially the receiver, Keon Chapman. No Alabama offer there. And frankly, I know we're going to talk about Auburn probably in the next segment a little bit. I will forever say that in Saban and now in DeBoer, Auburn's problem isn't beating Alabama for kids Alabama wants. I think a big disappointment for Auburn, they should be getting the high-quality SEC kids from the state that Alabama's not pushing for. And
I totally agree.
You could build a heck of a football team, and they don't even, certainly this cycle, they're not doing well even with those kids.
First of all, how would you like to play Jackson this year? They got a couple of dudes going to North Carolina. Jamarian Gordon going there too, I believe, right?
Gordon's going, yeah. So the 3 kids committed.
3 kids going to North Carolina.
One small school team in Alabama. That's crazy, isn't it? And then Duckworth.
Yeah. Then they've got Duckworth going to South Kakalaki. Probably.
He hasn't committed yet, right?
No, but he's going to.
Probably.
And then they've got, of course, Crowell coming to Bama. So, I mean, good luck. Forget 4A or 5A or 6A. 7A. If you were a 7A team, I wouldn't want to play that bunch.
I watched Jackson's team huddle about a month ago, Luke, and I seriously counted up watching their starting 22. I watch all 22 guys that are their supposed lineup for this fall. I counted 13 or 14 that need to play college football somewhere. That's a number you would typically say at Thompson High School or Spain Park or one of the big Prattville, maybe Saraland. But for Jackson to have 14 kids in their lineup that need to be playing college football somewhere, that's nuts.
Meanwhile, just national stuff going nuts. They're like a lot more commitments than just to Alabama. It's just interesting that all these commitments are happening during 4th of July week to me. But you had a 4-star commit to Texas Tech and Ace Roden. You had Emmanuel Ahenacho, who was probably the best offensive lineman in the country, commit to Oregon. You had, we mentioned Keon Chapman. There's another kid. This is not as big a deal. Is it J.J. Bush? Is that his name from down in Mobile?
Yeah, he plays at Theodore, and I like him quite a bit. He's a safety linebacker tweener type. I think some like him playing deep, some like him playing up. But yeah, he's an interesting player, committed to Arkansas. Did not have – they were talking about him today on Christian Miller's show on 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. I'm up there, and they were talking about he did not have a committable Alabama offer.
No.
But Alabama was interested in him. But
he looked good. I mean, again, his highlights. Because I'm at Orange Beach, so I was seeing they had the live announcement, and it caught my eye because I was thinking this guy's probably going, it'd be Troy or something like that. His Final Five had LSU in it, had Arkansas, had Missouri. He had some dudes.
I thought he might. Yeah, LSU, Missouri, Arkansas. Wasn't sure. Oh, and I don't think he's announced yet. But tomorrow, a great Saraland receiver that I'm shocked didn't get more SEC attention. But Deshawn Spencer from Saraland likely to commit to Duke tomorrow over Maryland. I thought Deshawn Spencer would get multiple SEC offers. Really good player at Saraland.
And then a kid you love, Ellis Maskin, for 2027 has committed to Notre Dame. We talked about that yesterday, like off air, and we're like, gosh, man, maybe Alabama can get back in on him. We'll see. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they want to.
Could be an Xavier Griffin situation. Yep. Xavier Griffin committed to USC really early, a whole year ago, and was committed to them for practically a calendar year before decommitting from USC, ultimately committing to Alabama. No reason to just, chisel Maskin to Notre Dame and stone. But, gosh, I'm a huge Maskin fan. 27 class in the Mobile area is very, very good. Gunnar Rivers, who's going to be maybe the top quarterback in the nation. I think he'll be one of the very top. Jaborius Guerrer, who's committed to Alabama from Viger, is outstanding. I have Ellis Maskin as the third best player in the Mobile region behind those two. Maskin's great. I think he should be a top 50, top 75 type player nationally, in my opinion.
Then, I say all this recruiting is going crazy and people are getting commitments left and right on the heels of last night at a place I'm actually a member of. I don't play golf there anymore because I don't like golf, but I'm still a member. Willow Point Country Club. Auburn had their Auburn Ambush or whatever it is. And a couple of interesting things. They brought their AD Cohen. They brought Hugh Freeze. They brought their baseball coach. Then they brought Stephen Pearl instead of Bruce Pearl, which was interesting because Bruce Pearl, number one, I think he plays golf at Willow Point a lot. And secondly, he's been to this event a lot. So I just raised some eyebrows in terms of what's going on there. But that's for another pod. But, Hugh and Cohen had some very interesting takes about, hey, why is recruiting going so bad? I mean, that's the only thing you can say about that. And it was essentially to this isn't verbatim, but essentially with the gist of it, we're doing it the right way and everybody else is doing it the wrong way. And I'm like, okay, but that's fine if you want to say that. I would like to hear it from somebody who's not Hugh Freeze, if you don't mind.
It felt like damage control, but they made it worse. I mean, that was the way I took it. Now, of course, I'm not the person to ask. I'm not an Auburn fan, and I just watch, just as an interested spectator. But to me, it made it worse. When they say, we're doing it right and everybody else is doing it wrong, implying that everyone else is acting unethically. I think Toledo is ahead of Auburn right now in the recruiting rankings. Toledo. What is Toledo doing unethically to be out recruiting Auburn? What's Toledo doing crazy with NIL that they're not supposed to be doing? So I think their explanation sort of made it worse. And it also one sentence implied that they don't even really know how revenue share and NIL work because they implied that NIL counts against the cap. It does not count against the revenue share cap except in extreme. It's so long it would take up the whole show to explain how it could happen. But it has to do with if NIL Go rejects your deal, if NIL Go says this deal cannot happen and you do it anyway, then they're going to count that as revenue share money. It comes off your cap. Now, most schools, I think, once NIL Go says it's a no-go, then they're not going to do it that way because your revenue share is already spoken for. You could go over your revenue share cap. That's a big problem. So I don't think it would ever really happen. But gosh, it's just that their whole explanation just didn't make any sense to me at all.
I mean, and also everybody else being unethical or being called unethical by Hugh Freeze is like P. Diddy saying, "Hey, you have too much baby oil at your house." You know, I mean, it just, come on, man. I mean, look, just it's so funny because, yeah, and Cohen even went out of his way to say, "Hey, you know, Hugh Freeze, when he first got here, we were in the 60s or 70s in rankings, and when he got here, we got in the 20s." Well, do you think he did all that ethically?
And that's what they were. It's about what's going on now. I don't think Auburn fans are complaining about what happened 3 cycles ago. They're complaining about what's happening right now, and I don't blame them. It is. I mean, Auburn recruiting is it's a mess, and I'm not saying that as an Alabama fan taking a shot. It's just a fact. The recruiting is a mess. I think they're dead last in the SEC, and there's no reason for Auburn, with all of their resources and that huge fan base, and Hugh Freeze, who's a proven recruiter, there is no reason at all to justify Auburn being dead last in the SEC in recruiting.
And I wouldn't even mind if they would have said it like, "Hey, what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to walk this fine line. We're trying to still understand the rules." Because I think that's what it is. And frankly, I think people would forgive them a little more and appreciate the honesty, because I'm not sure anybody understands all of it just yet. It's very difficult to understand it.
They didn't seem to have the plan that, like Alabama, I mean, to give Alabama a lot of credit, I think Alabama anticipated House passing. And not only that, but what House would look like when it did become the law. And Alabama sort of did it all well in advance and had a plan and hit the ground running. And now let's see what happens with NIL Go. I mean, obviously we can talk about the rest of the summer until practice and the games start, but it's fascinating in terms of what's going to be allowed by NIL Go, what won't be allowed. The 5-star plus tackle today that committed to Oregon, he's the best or second best tackle in the country, best or second best prospect, in my opinion, in this whole class. I'd be fascinated to know what his deal with Oregon is. What deal did you agree to? And the kid believes, and Oregon believes, is going to pass muster, right? I mean, so I bet there's a lot of coaches around the country going, okay, what was that deal? How do they know this is going to work? And heck, for all we know, all Oregon promised him was a fancy highlighter looking jersey and a signed football from the Duck. I mean, what do we know?
Not just the Duck mascot, like just a duck.
Yeah.
That'd be cooler.
He could sign something, know what he's doing.
All right, so Jimmy, the roster countdown has come upon a guy that I think by the end of the year, if Alabama's doing well, I think this guy will have moved up the list.
I love that comment because I think we've reached a guy on the countdown, by the way, number 28, just 28 days, 4 weeks from today, Alabama will be on the practice field. It's hard to believe, right? But number 28 is Kelby Collins. I couldn't agree with Luke more about Kelby's one of the guys on the roster that if he's really good, Alabama may be better than we even think. But if Kelby, who's going to play a lot in the interior and wasn't so great in the interior at Florida, if Kelby is passed up by other interior guys at Alabama, that might spell trouble the other way, right? Because depth on the defensive interior is an issue with this team. Kelby can sort of solve it if he's great. If he's not great, it could be one of the bigger issues on the team is the depth on the defensive line. Now, the starters look great. James Smith, Tim Keenan, LT Overton. The depth at Bandit's really good. But the depth on those two interior spots, nose guard and defensive tackle, that's a question mark. But Kelby Collins looks like the first guy off the bench right now. And the first guy off the bench plays a lot of snaps in college football. Keep in mind that when Alabama signed Kelby Collins, it was thought that he was going to be an outside bandit. Well, he showed up at like 280 pounds, not necessarily overweight. This is just a big kid. He's just a big dude. He showed up looking like a defensive tackle, and then Alabama has a little bit more opportunity inside. So he's actually playing more inside than he would have at Bandit. So I think he's happy with it. But gosh, this guy is one of the true hinge, guys, where, boy, their season almost sort of hinges on how good Kelby Collins is. I'm obviously pretty optimistic. I have him as the 28th best player on this football team, and he is one to watch this fall and in the games in terms of how good is Alabama on defense? Well, how good is Kelby Collins?
You know, I was on mute.
Yeah,
but I didn't talk, so it doesn't count.
That shouldn't count. That was just you pondering that nugget of a take I had on.
I should have just been doing this. Why? Next time, whenever I'm on mute from now on, I'm just going to do this.
So good. In.
By the way, I loved your ventriloquist cough in the middle of that rant.
I did well, didn't I? I can project.
So, look, I loved Kelby Collins in high school. I really wanted him to be at Alabama. I really wanted him to commit. He didn't. He committed to Florida, and he played better his first year than he did his second year. But was he hurt?
I think his first year he did really good at Bandit, and then the second year, I think their bigger issue was they changed defensive line coaches, and they sort of changed what they were doing up front. And when they did that, they moved Kelby inside. His snaps and production went downhill. That's why he got frustrated and left. So it was thought, well, he didn't like playing inside, didn't go well at Florida. He must be coming to Alabama to play outside. But this spring, people that don't watch spring practice and are there all the time, they might not realize that because they might have thought, no, Alabama signed Kelby Collins to play Bandit. He played inside the whole spring. If he played any snaps at Bandit, that's news to me. He played inside at Alabama's A-Day, for instance. Kelby Collins was exclusively inside, and that's my understanding in terms of the practices.
All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow live after Nolan Wilson's commitment, which is supposed to be at 5, but, stay tuned. So it's supposed to be at 5 o'clock on God's time, Central. So we will have a live podcast after that. And until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.